I would describe COVID season as
challenging,
strange,
surreal,
one word.
disappointing,
frustrating,
unusual,
starry a word,
nuts, weird,
difficult, wild,
buffering,
uncertain,
mental.
It's like the apocalypse, no fans, no nothing, it's just strange.
I think it all began on Friday the 13th. We were supposed to play Aberdeen that night, and then COVID hit.
The Joint Response Group, which is made up of the SFA and SPFL, released a statement where they confirmed the suspension of all domestic, professional and grassroots football under the jurisdiction of the Scottish FA until further notice.
Obviously at that point it was a battle between us and Aberdeen to see who was going to finish third.
I think it was, I might be wrong, but around about lunchtime, the word started filtering through that there may be a chance that the game was off.
Then obviously we've seen on the screens on the Sky Sports News and stuff like that the league was going to be stopped, and obviously at that point it was just the complete unknown.
Never thought it would progress on to the levels that it did.
Obviously seeing the Twitter and all that about the COVID kind of coming, and you don't really believe it's going to take football away.
Everything kept changing. We got a text saying this, text saying that, text saying this, text saying that.
And then obviously everything just went downhill from there.
It wasn't like that closure. Normally after you finish the season you get the chance to obviously parade the fans and walk in the park, and you're there with the teammates and give everybody a good handshake and say thanks for the times and the good times. But it was a bit strange.
The Prime Minister has announced the most drastic limits to our lives that the UK has ever seen in living memory.
Yeah, in the beginning I've actually thought like it will only take like a couple weeks, couple months maximum, but then you see like it's getting worse and worse and worse by the day.
I don't watch the news. I think that's probably the first I've ever watched the news. It was when the COVID thing came about, and just seeing how bad it actually was, you could tell like football's not coming back for a while.
Everybody then started panicking a wee bit, thinking that they were going to be locked up, and you had to go out and people were buying gym equipment and doing all sorts of different things.
We were all sort of at home trying to keep your fitness up as much as you could, and sort of being ready to come back if we were asked to do that.
When you've not got a certain start date, keeping players in condition, in the right condition at the right time was a real challenge throughout that time, to be honest.
Obviously being a footballer, your job's basically getting outside every day, being with all the boys, the banter, the training hard, the working hard, and I think when all that gets taken away from you, I think you don't realise how much you miss it.
When we found out the season had been cancelled, it was good. Obviously nice to know that we were getting third place, so we wouldn't lose that anyway with the season being curtailed.
I think it took away from the fact if we were on the pitch together to be able to celebrate with ourselves and the fans, it would have been very special, and that was maybe taken away from us a bit.
I'm back! It is what it is. No, it'll have your number. You're fighting for it.
We came back in mid-June.
Obviously you can speak on WhatsApp and stuff, but to actually see everybody and talk was really refreshing.
Seeing everybody just laughing, smiling, seeing a wee bit of normality, and that was one of the biggest reliefs I think in my career anyway.
We were training up at the Hill, and we had to go straight on from there. We couldn't shout together, all that sort of stuff.
And we had to train in groups, so like in little pods.
We were all arriving at different times and staying in our own kind of bubbles.
Travelling in different cars and different buses is a bit weird. Obviously it's annoying when you get the minibus to training, you get that sort of camaraderie in the bus, bit of banter on that. Pretty much most of pre-season I think was non-contact.
It was still the unknown, but just to be back out in the field was amazing.
I think maybe the last week of pre-season we got opened up to do, full contact training.
Can you actually not put it in my nose as far as
It's got to go all the way back, I'm afraid, right? Well done. Over the worst of it. Brilliant, well done. Good lad.
Well done, Barry. Same time Friday, same place.
It was violating, honestly.
Oh, horrible. Absolutely horrible.
The testing, horrible.
I still remember getting that first test. I think maybe most people remember that. If they've had it done, it's not the most pleasant.
People used to always say it was the throat bit that was the hardest. And the next thing you know, it got stuck right up my nose. Genuinely thought he was trying to sweep my brain at one point, but yeah, it wasn't nice. It's not something that I'm going to miss if it goes out of the game anyway.
This looks like detention or something.
We got back to Fir Park after about a month of just reporting straight to DL, and it was completely different to what we're used to.
You know, you had to have your mask on, obviously, in terms of hand sanitisation, the social distancing aspect from being players split into different dressing rooms and split up at eating times, things like that. So it had a very different feel, because although you're back together, you're not back together in a sense, and it was trying to do the best of that situation, really.
I remember even the new lads that I signed, I think it was a couple of weeks before I even spoke to some of the new signings.
For the first 3 or 4 weeks of training, I only knew literally 5 people.
You don't get to maybe get that connection. Like I was just new in that, so hard to get to know boys.
I'm not allowed to play pool or darts, so you do miss that interaction with each other.
A strong team is it's probably built good relationships, and that was very much lacking. You couldn't do anything outside of football. You couldn't be together for too long here.
Pre-season's obviously usually good for new signings and that to bed in with the group and sort of get to know everyone.
It's been hard for them to kind of come away somewhere now, no family, and get comfortable really. So I think that's been trying to do that on the park. It took a wee bit of time, but I think the boys have settled in eventually. The match environment is probably one of the weirdest.
The first couple of games was really, really strange.
I remember the first away game which I played in, we were, I think, 2 or 3 different change rooms.
Go to the game with different coaches and stuff. So everyone's not really together to speak about the game, what's going to happen or what has happened,
Even just in the tunnel, with the opposition, you're away from them in a different stand. The whole point of the match day feeling, the both of you meet in the tunnel, both of you are ready to go. Different shouts, different teams try to get their team going.
Football without fans it's terrible.
It's rubbish.
It's just not been as enjoyable.
Oh no, it's horrible. It's the worst thing about COVID in my work experience.
At the end of the day, it's a spectator sport, and everything you do, the goals you score, you want to celebrate it with the fans.
You miss that run to the fans, seeing their faces and how excited they are for you scoring. It takes that sort of love away from the game.
It's kind of hard to get going at times.
You've got to find that motivation within and motivate yourself and the lads around you. It's easy to point the finger and say, players should be able to rise to whatever, under whatever circumstances, but very difficult.
Football, it's such an emotional game, an enjoyable game, and without the fans there's just that edge taken away from it.
I wouldn't say it took a shine off the European run, because it's still, everybody knew the mass of the occasion, but as I say, it would have been brilliant to see the fans over in Israel, and that would have been class.
You could just imagine all the fans being there, knowing the team hotel, being there, singing their songs. I think it's obviously something that you're gutted that I never experienced, and obviously I know all the boys will be the same.
I think back to my playing days, and the memories I have, right back to Nonsay, are the pictures I was receiving from Nonsay Town Centre, from my family being out in Panathinaikos and Athens. All of these are the things that stick in my mind, and walking out at Fir Park and that East Stand being bouncing, not a seat to be had. And unfortunately, even with the draw we had, particularly the 2 Northern Ireland trips, you think of the fans that we'd have taken with us.
It's just not even close to being the same.
Without them here, it's just not football.
We hope we've managed to give them joy at the other end of a TV screen or a radio or whatever that may be at times. But nothing beats having that energy in the stadium, and hopefully we can get that back, sooner rather than later.
I really hope we can get back to a bit of normality in it for next season, and I can meet the fans.
And 11 Scotland under-21 players are isolating after a COVID outbreak in the squad as Scottish football continues to count the cost of the pandemic.
So I missed a few games when I came back for national duty, due to the track and trace. I think a couple of the boys caught COVID, and made me and Barry, I'm sure, miss a few games here.
I was at one window, I was at the other one, so we were at the same bit, and then I still don't know who it was that tested positive, to be fair, but I think they must have either been in front of us or behind us, close enough to obviously be told that we can't play, because there was boys that were on the same flight that played the next day.
It was a kind of think on your feet situation, and something we had to adapt to very, very quickly.
It was a bit frustrating because we got tested 4 or 5 times and didn't have COVID, so...
My whole family were going out to work. Like, everybody in my house was fine, I was fine. Everybody's going out to work, but I wasn't allowed to leave the house.
It's annoying knowing that you're fit and healthy, try to watch your team play. Normally you're injured and you can kind of mentally get your head around it, but it's a bit different when you're feeling fine and fit.
Well, it's been quite the week for Motherwell. 6 points gained after the SPFL ruled St Mirren and Kilmarnock breached Covid guidelines.
St Mirren and Kilmarnock were found to be breaking the rules, so the games were called off and we were awarded the points.
Yeah, it was a strange situation.
It was a very weird time to take points from anybody.
I think it took us into the top 6. It really gives you a chance to look up the table rather than looking back. They then appealed the punishment, so the games had to be played in the end.
Certainly from our point of view, it was a tricky period to manage.
If they were going to appeal it and stuff, the points should never have been given in the first place, which then let the representation of where we were in the league would have just stayed the same.
We found out that the 6 points were taken off us on Boxing Day. I remember we were at pre-match before we were travelling.
We get more punished than them because it was a mindset for that point that we got 6 points took off us and we dropped places in the league, and then we were expected to play a game of football after that with your mind all over the place.
It's a big hit to take, knowing that you're starting on -6 points there, so on that day, and put so much pressure builds on that game now, which it wasn't ideal preparation.
It wasn't a great time for us, and it felt as if we get punished more than what the clubs that actually broke the COVID rules did. They worked harder than anybody I've ever seen at this football club.
Nothing prepares you for a season, I guess, and there was things that Robbo had to put up with that, probably 90% of the stuff he was dealing with wasn't football related this season, and that must have been tough.
Rather than tactics and winning games of football being your first consideration, really. The health of your players and your staff and the protocols that we've spoken about being the first consideration every day. It's difficult, it's different, and there's just no getting away from that.
It was just one of those seasons where it felt as if things just weren't going to go away, and I kind of understand why he felt that way also.
It's a strange old game, but it's even stranger this season, and it's, you see, whether it be players falling out of form or, managers losing their jobs and stuff, and it's a part of the game, but I think, the reasons and the circumstances definitely, been tougher this year.
How you doing, fellas? You okay? Thank you.
Are you just looking out to the pictures for me?
Yep.
It's the first time I'm doing any sort of interview on Zoom or online. I think the biggest thing or the biggest fear I had from that was my character or personality would come across in that sort of interview process.
And when you're ready, just look up into the camera.
Immediately when I signed for Motherwell, the first thing I need to do was go and get tested. Now you don't usually need to do that in a normal signing.
This is the only way I've seen the club, so I've heard about when the fans are here and you go for places and all the fans are there, but I've not been able to experience that.
Attracting players to come and play is tough enough anyway, but certainly with the travel restrictions and all that sort of stuff, that put another sort of twist on negotiations really.
I haven't been able to go and really experience Scotland either. I've just kind of been locked up in my apartment and that's about it.
We tried to do our best, but we were obviously restricted about the conditions that we could do.
You go to work, you go home, back to work, go home, there's been no real kind of time to interact with the people and have fun.
The socialising aspect is pretty much, apart from at training grounds, pretty much disappeared from football at the moment.
Yeah, this does not look good for John Roberts. He's writhing around in pain here, and that could be a serious knee injury, which is such a shame.
I think even the injured boys were asked to sort of, at times nearly stay away from the fit lads.
You're not allowed to go up and watch training as much, and just that side of it was sort of would help take your mind off the injury. But yeah, it's definitely been a different feel this year to it than when I was out last year.
We're all in the changing room in the gym, and I think even to this day that some of the injured boys are still having to be up in the gym because of numbers. So it's very different from the norm. I think injured boys in previous seasons will obviously be in amongst the squad and made to feel right a part of it, but due to COVID, it's something that we're not allowed. No one could have guessed that the fans would have been out the whole season.
It's actually got to the point now where you can't really remember, which is quite sad. You can't really remember playing in front of the crowd. It's been that long.
I think obviously when you've seen down in England, they get fans back for the test run. I think you could see how much better already it was.
The last couple of games, it'd have been nice for a send-off to obviously thank the fans for their support virtually throughout the season.
When you see a lot of things that they've opened up like pubs and outdoor drinking and obviously shopping centres and this, that, next thing, but yet people can't be socially distant outside in a football ground.
I think next season, hopefully when it's completely back to normal, that it'll be something that we'll cherish.
A lot of people use football clubs and use Saturdays at games and stuff like that as a getaway from their normal life, and I think that's something that we've struggled with this year through COVID is mental health, and I think football plays a big part in it.
I'm more appreciative this season with football because the few months that we had off, knowing what it's like not to have football, because when you're off you can't even watch it, never mind, like, there was just no involvement at all with football.
Just makes me just appreciate the fact that I got to come here most of this year and do my job where people were stuck in the house, maybe struggling for money, and their mental health wasn't right because they weren't able to do the things they've been doing in life.
It's been massive for my mental health in terms of coming in every day and getting that escape that you usually got in normal life.
I've been able to appreciate getting to play. I don't think we've been privileged because there's been risk attached to it as well. Like we're not in bubbles, we're in a contact sport. So whenever people brand this as being privileged, I don't think it's quite that. But we are very lucky to get to play. Our job is a lot of people's hobbies, and we get to do it in these tough times.
For me, the big thing I'll take out of it is, not that I ever have taken the fans for granted, but to really appreciate them when they come back, because I've said it a couple of times now. It's just made me aware that fans make football, because it's you can say what you want, it's not the same without them.
You see videos of the past and you'll see the big stadiums full, fans cheering, just the emotion, everybody's together feeling that exact same feeling, and I think that's when that's took away, it's just not the same sport.
When you're playing a game and you're enjoying yourself in front of the fans, that's a best feeling in football. Winning games and playing well and the supporters being behind you is amazing, and you can't swap that, whether it be for crowd noise, whether it be for anything like that.
I think for a club like us, especially that, having fans in is a really big thing as a community club, more than most, I'd say.
I think the power of the fans and the value that fans in general bring to the game of football is, if there's anything positive to come out of this year, it's certainly shone a light on that power, that value that the fans bring, not just to Motherwell Football Club, but football in general.
Before you just think about football, but now you think about other stuff around football.
We managed to get through it as one.
To be honest, I'll try not to remember this season too much.
It's just been a very sad and difficult time, but thankfully we're coming out the other side.
You look back and probably laugh and say, how strange it was and how unique it was. But during the course of it, I think it's threw up a lot of tests where it's tested your resolve and your character as well as you and your teammates. And I think fingers crossed we'll never see anything like it again.
It's probably something to look back on and think, we got through it.